Hey everybody, Keith here from the War Room, trying to decide what to cover this week on the show. And we've had some response from our reviews of Not-Polyoptics games, that software company that I love so much from the early 80s for the TI-99 4A. We've covered a few of their games, we've gotten some good response, and people have said, what about some of their lesser known games? What about some of their games like Maze of Ariel or Treasure Trap? But I made a decision that I'm not going to cover any more Not-Polyoptics games until I can fit into my old Not-Polyoptics 99er program person t-shirt from back in the day. Huh? I think that's a worthy goal, right? I'm not gonna, till I fit in this Not-Polyoptics till I get this thing on my, you know what? Why don't we just do them this week?
Sometimes you like a game just because of a funny move your character makes, or a neat theme song, or a particular trick of the gameplay. On first glance, Maze of Ariel doesn't look like it's got a lot going for it. Now, I've said before that every platform had a maze game early on, just like everyone had a breakout game and a snake game. You could stretch that to include just about every software house as well, mazes being one of the first game ideas that really seemed to translate from paper to procedural generation on a computer screen. Maze of Ariel asks the question, what if you didn't even need to draw a maze with an actual way out? Instead, the game just creates a whole board of random paths and then starts shifting tiles willy-nilly. The weird thing about that is the walls look uneven, and sometimes you can't tell if a wall blocking your tiny dot is an inner wall of the tile you're standing on, or the outer wall of the one next door. This matters because you have a limited supply of grenades to blow the inner walls away on your tile. There's something about the way the walls are drawn, some with that double thickness thing going on, that makes the whole thing look organic and asymmetrical and hand-drawn, like you're playing on an actual piece of graph paper. And the shifting of the random tiles makes the walls seem, squirmy? Kind of alive. It's a really neat effect. It's kind of atmospheric, especially with this dark color scheme. And having dead ends that open up into passages to your goal and then close again while you're en route to them keeps you on your toes. If you hit L, a lantern illuminates your tile, which shows you whether or not your grenade will do any good, and happens to look really cool lit up against the dark blue backdrop. While you're figuring out how to get to the top, there's a dragon lumbering toward you, who can pass through regular walls but not solid blocks of tile. You can actually pass it and keep going, but if it lands on your tile during its move, you're done for. That's pretty much the whole game right there. The maze walls shift, the dragon hops around, you gotta traverse from bottom to top and back again 5 times total in 500 moves to win. It's not much game to hang your hat on, really. And yet, let's put it this way. TI's official entry into the maze game world is called A-Mazing. And being a cartridge game, it's faster than Maze of Ariel, it's got more options, it looks better, and it has joystick control that's a lot smoother. But I would play Maze of Ariel over A-Mazing 10 out of 10 times any day of the week, just because of the look and feel and vibe going on here. The heart wants what it wants. And sometimes it wants to get away from a tiny dragon in a maze gloomy enough to be an album cover from The Cure. If you prefer your mazes top-down, rendered one room at a time, and devoid of oxygen, Not-Polyoptics has still got you. Treasure Trap was a later basic game of theirs, written by Faisal Shah and published in 1983. Now, chances are, if you got your software back in the day by copying it off other people, and you didn't have an internet to find PDFs of a manual, this game didn't make a damn bit of sense to you. I have the manual right in front of me, and it still took me a few minutes. You're exploring an artificial planetoid left by an extinct race of aliens to help colonize new worlds millions of years ago. In each of these complexes, there is a treasure, which you must find and bring back to your capsule to win the game. There are oxygen tanks to replenish your supply, supercomputers which require floppy disks to reveal clues to the treasure's whereabouts, and dormant robots which you must either rescue from an eternal trap or neutralize with a blaster. Let's address this right now. This game is slow, and not just because it's in basic. Your character has to walk across all these big empty rooms, and when you first start playing, it seems like that's going to get real tedious real fast. And if you use Classic 99 emulator and you're thinking, I could just run this in CPU overdrive mode, think again. It's fun to run through about one chamber real fast, but your oxygen tank ticks down to 0 in less time than it took me to tell you that fact. The good news is, Treasure Trap looks awesome, and the gameplay is fascinating and immersive. Grab some graph paper, because you'll want to make a map of where you are, especially when you start finding objects. You're going to need to keep track of where the oxygen tanks are, and not stray too far from them. And you'll want to know how many impassable walls are between you and the treasure when you start getting clues. Treasure Trap makes you go the long way around, and what's more, every time you run out of air and start over, you wind up on a different planetoid. I'm assuming they're procedurally generated, and if I somehow luck into hitting maze number 31 or maze number 29 again, the maps I started making will come in handy. But the instructions say it's randomized every time I play. So why are there numbered planetoids then? Maybe that answer lies on a floppy disk. When you find disks, you take them to a supercomputer and you get a clue, either map coordinates, distance, or a general direction to look for the treasure. XY indicators, those little things that look like clocks, will give you exact coordinates as long as you're carrying them, which is really helpful if you're trying to map your progress on paper. And there are blasters, but you don't do much actual blasting. When you find robots left behind by the ancient builders, they tend to either be trapped and benevolent and willing to offer up clues to the treasure in exchange for your help, or they've gone berserk after the long millennia in space. A trapdoor or a psycho robot will transport you to a random location on the planetoid and take away whatever you are carrying, but they won't kill you. Only lack of oxygen will do that. And if you do enter a room with a fired up robot and you have your blaster handy, consider that bad boy neutralized, HAL from 2001 style. Keep an eye on that oxygen meter to the left if you know what's good for you. And when you find the treasure, follow your map back to the capsule for the win. Treasure Trap is quite an accomplishment. Even among Not-Polyoptics games, it's hardly ever mentioned. Given when it came out, I have to assume it wasn't one of their bigger sellers, but this is just a fantastic piece of code. It's more or less a dungeon crawl with plenty of strategy and suspense, and a race against time in an aesthetically awesome extraterrestrial setting. It's well worth the effort to track down and fire up in your emulator, or on the real iron. That's it for this week's episode of Tales from the War Room. If you had a good time, I hope you'll hit like and subscribe. We put up new episodes every Friday at 12 noon Eastern, and I hope to see you again right after I get back from another million or so of these planetoids. See you later.